Seeing that it is 5:32, and we are starting 2 minutes late, my apologies, it's my fault. We'll start with the meeting agenda for the December 12th, 2023 Community Improvement Corporation. First, we will start with a roll call, please.
Ms. Ulrich?
Here.
Mr. Unger?
Here.
Mr. Waller?
Here.
Mr. McElravy? Mr. McElravy is not here. Mr. Miller?
Here.
Mr. Moravec?
Here.
And I myself am here.
All right, you have been provided minutes from the September 19th, 2023 meeting. Are there any motions at this point?
I motion that we approve the minutes from September 19th, 2023.
Any seconds?
Well, second.
We have a motion and a duly seconded. It's been duly seconded. Are there any questions, concerns, or discussion with regard to those minutes?
None for me.
None at this time.
All right, for that, in that, we will now call for a vote.
Ms. Ulrich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes?
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Moravec?
Here. Yes.
And yes.
All right, that passes 1, 2, 3, 6, nothing. Okay, we have new business to discuss. The first one, the annual meeting of the C.I.C. for January 23rd, 2024.
So the Colerain Township Board of Trustees meeting is scheduled for January 23rd, 2024. And so, as is our custom, we try to be efficient with our time and our meetings, and we would like to schedule our annual meeting just prior to the Board of Trustees meeting on that same evening at 5:30 p.m. Recommend passage of the motion.
All right, are there any motions?
I motion that we set the annual meeting of the C.I.C. for January 23rd, 2024.
And I'll second. You second it.
I'll second it.
All right, just for the record, we do not have set yet the meeting, the Board of Trustees meeting calendar for 2024. It's anticipated that we will have one January 23rd. If not, we can come back and change.
Thank you, sir.
Any other discussion?
None for me.
All right, hearing none, seeing none, we'll call for a vote.
Ms. Ulrich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Moravec?
Yes.
And yes.
All right, that passes as well. We have now the financial statements of January through November 2023.
All right, so we have a motion that is the financial statements that Mr. McElravy has prepared due to illness. He's not able to be with us tonight, and so that the financial statements are in your packet, and so recommend passage of the statements.
Are there any motions at this time?
I'll make a motion that we accept the statements as prepared.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
It looks like that leaves us with a balance of about $70,008.19,
Yes, sir.
and then all the other money that flowed in and out.
All right. Any other discussion? Call for a vote, please.
Ms. Ulrich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Moravec?
Yes.
And yes.
Okay, that passes 6-0 as well. The motion to approve the financial statements January through November 2023. Item C is discussion sale of C.I.C. owned property.
All right, so at a previous meeting, the Colerain Township has deeded to the Community Improvement Corporation a vacant lot at 6768 Acre Drive. And so as the board had requested, we put that vacant lot out for sale in a variety of ways, published it in the newspaper, on websites, and so contacted everyone who had previously expressed interest in some vacant lots that we sold earlier in the year. And so in your board packet, there are 2 offers that have come in and for you to review, and then we would discuss those and decide whether we wanted to accept either of those offers.
All right, so at this point, you're calling for discussion, not an actual motion.
The
That's how you have it.
It says discussion, but if you wanted to make a motion, certainly that is an option for us tonight.
I think I'd rather discuss it before we took an up or down vote on it. So did you talk to, I'm looking at the one from Mr.
Sedlock?
Sedlock. Have you spoken to him?
I have spoken to Nicholas Sedlock.
And what's your observations?
Well, I have submitted into your packets that his proposal, he has presented a couple of different options. One was, his first proposal was a native pollinator garden and community green space. He does live nearby this and would manage it from that perspective. The second proposal, he offered up building either single, two-family, or multifamily residential housing. And so that is, I think, I was a little bit curious as to the value of paying money when it would not have any return, as if it was used as a pollinator garden or community green space. And, you know, kudos to him for wanting to have that for his neighborhood to enjoy. And so, at the same time, it is in the middle of a residential neighborhood and seems appropriate to have a building there, so I think he's open to either of those.
Well, seeing one's 27.5 and one's 4,000, the offer from, what's her, Shelley
Bolden?
Bolden, this would not be a rental, it would be a for sale.
Correct.
Okay.
And actually,
That is my understanding.
I just want to double check on that. It didn't say if she was going for resale.
and it's actually not 27. It's in increments, it matches the highest.
Oh, okay, sorry, just saw that. I have to
Yeah.
reread that. Sorry.
Let me get the exact total here, but
Yeah, it's interesting escalation clause that he did put in his bid there.
Maybe goes up to,
Now, we did not present these to the board in that fashion where there was a back and forth. These were both sealed bids that were presented to the CIC. So I wasn't quite sure how you wanted to process that escalation clause. So, yes, he does say he would be willing to go $1 over another bid up to a max, but nonetheless, he may have been thinking we were going to be doing an auction, and it wasn't that. It was just sealed bids.
well, in the last couple of years in real estate, a lot of people, well, it was more than $1, but we hit, that's part of our contracts, and that was escalation clause. So it's the norm.
so it appears that we're not debating price at this point, but just the merits of
Yeah.
each of the proposals.
Highest and best use.
Did the home on Planet Drive get constructed?
She is still in the process of working through plans on that. She does still intend to build a home and live there. The other property on
Wyndon?
now I'm drawing a blank on the.
There was another property back at the
There
time
was
we
another
sold
property.
Planet.
That house is built, and the last meeting, I think it was what we had shown a picture. It looks very very similar to the other homes in the neighborhood. It's brand new, looked great, and so my guess is by now he's already sold that.
If we were to, looking at both of them, I would say the Bolden bid is $4,000 and the other bid is not $1 more than that, but it's what he put as his high number. Because I don't think it's fair to Bolden to say, well, this guy's giving us a range, so we'll just sell it to him for $1 more.
I did not feel like I had the freedom to tell her what his bid was, and I did not disclose to her what that, that he had an escalation clause. And so if they were both here, maybe they would present. She acted like she was going to attend. Mr. Sedlock did express interest in watching the proceedings live, and so don't know if that's happening or not.
Yeah, for the first bid, we really don't have a concrete use. It could be an either-or use. The second bid, we have a concrete use, so I don't know if that factors into the calculus of the members of the board, but I think it bears.
I would like to see a house built there. Yeah, that's personal.
I would probably, and I'm just one of the group, I would probably ask Bolden if they want to buy it for 4,000. And if they do, go forward with it, and if they don't, then I'd go to the other guy and let him buy it for the minimum of 4,001. But I would offer it to Bolden first.
Well, we do have our bid, we could accept it,
Right,
and then
it's already-
we would prepare a contract on that.
Yeah, so at this point, I think, I'm going to make a motion to accept the bid by
Shelley Bolden.
Ms. Shelley Bolden and Bolden Contractors?
Bolden Builders.
Bolden
LLC.
Builders, LLC.
I'll second it.
All right, is there any discussion then we have a motion and a second to accept the Bolden Builders LLC bid on the Acre Drive.
Well, to that, I would say I appreciate the other offer, but to me, it's rather unclear. I don't think it's right to sell it to him for 4,001 when Bolden gave a hard number and the other bidder did not. So I would, that's why I'm picking the Bolden bid.
And for me, we do have a use that's defined with the second bid too.
I agree.
All right, so that being said then, I think we're ready for a vote.
Ms. Orridge?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Moravec?
Yes.
And yes.
All right, that passes as well. All right, next we have item D, a discussion, Sears at Northgate Mall.
So there was a request that we follow up the purchase of the Sears department store at Northgate Mall, or I guess you could say the former Sears. And so what is in your packet are the closing statements, the initial agreement that we signed with the Port Authority, that is the agreement, for them to represent us at auction. And then the third document is the master property holding agreement that we have signed with the Port Authority for them to manage this property, hold it for us. And again, this agreement's already been approved by you, and so I was providing the final signed documents for that for you. Also in your packet are the expenses that the Port Authority in their management role have paid on our behalf, and that is the work order for Geiler on an HVAC issue when the Halloween store, Spirit Halloween, was in there. And then there is a utility bill for Duke, which was the first bill that came through during that period. That was 17 days, 10/17 to November 2nd.
So $984 was just our portion of the rent for 925 to.
Or which page are you,
I'm on
Spirit
the
Halloween
closing
rent?
statement. Our credit, if it was, I'm just looking at what our
Yeah,
portion
I'm
of our
looking,
rent.
it should be more than that.
I know, I
shouldn't it?
thought it was more. It was
It was.
I see $984.11.
Yeah, our portion, the lease for Spirit Halloween was approximately 60,000 and some change.
Yeah, that's why I was just wondering how.
And what was the closing date on it?
9/25.
So
We had all of,
it seems to me we would have captured most of that.
yeah, we would have all
we
of
would, but
October and
this-
November.
This is the amount of rent for Spirit Halloween up
For
to
the
that
short
point.
period of time that they rented it from the port.
That is correct.
So
Oh,
the,
okay, so this is, okay.
so the long period of time shows up as,
It's not on here, the monies were paid directly to the Port Authority.
Okay, I just was looking
oh,
for
it
that.
goes in, it goes
Okay.
into a holding fund so they can pay the electric and
Yes,
the
we
rest of
have
that.
We have an operating account with the Port Authority, and they're working to get us a final accounting as of current period. I was expecting it today, it just, for some reason, didn't show up before this meeting.
Okay, just want to double check on that one.
So, I asked for and received the 204-page master agreement from July 24th of 1970, and it's some fine reading, and it's a really interesting history of the development of the mall, of the original investor, Ewing Industries, and they were looking for a couple co-investors, and that was Pogues and Sears. We'll build, but we want our own lot there, and that's how it came to pass that those two had their own parcels, and then McAlpin's wanted the lease, so that's why it ended up the way it did. And what I gathered through that was for us to, if we consider demolishing it, which we haven't formally talked about yet, we would have to give them 90 days, give the other landowners the other parcel owners 90 days notice. So if we were to do that sometime soon, that would, 90 days from today is somewhere around March 11th or 12th, and we may or may not get a grant from the state sometime in April. So if we were to give them that contractual 90 days notice, we should probably consider doing that at some point sooner than later.
Right. So we I failed to mention that a while ago, we did apply for the Ohio Department of Development demolition grant program. We submitted that at the end of October, and so the port has filed that. The portal will remain open with the state until April, and then the state will sort through and make decisions on what those distributions look like. The port thought that we had a very good chance of getting a good grant for that, a good sizable one, and so we worked with several contractors here locally to provide estimates on those on the demolition costs on the building. They gave those. We submitted those to the port, and that's what was submitted as our offer for that. So we, as you said, April is when we would know if we give notice according to the agreement with the mall, then that would potentially be that 90 days advance notice. We are still reading through these documents in order to ascertain what is still in force based on who is currently on site and whether there's anything has expired. So.
And the opening date for the mall was September 30th, 1972, and there was a couple clauses in there that said everything had to stay in place for 30 years, and that's well expired. Okay, Kathy, you remember when it was built. My parents,
That's why I'm laughing.
my parents
Okay.
took us up there as little kids, and I remember going up there and watching it. But regardless, and that's why I wanted to discuss this tonight, just to catch the flavor of, do we go ahead and start that 90-day notice? And we're probably not prepared to make that decision now, but I don't know if we could make that on January 2nd at our trustees organizational meeting, or just to, get everybody thinking about it.
Well, if that's the trustee meeting, we have scheduled January 23rd as the next C.I.C. meeting. And maybe at that point, we would have a better understanding of what that 90-day notice
Sure.
looks like.
So with regard to the 90-day, is it a locked-in 90-day, or can
I
we,
was just gonna say,
is there an
can-
option on it?
yeah,
Can we
is
give them 90 days and say, well,
It could be
no,
100
we're not
days.
going to do it, and then maybe another 90 days from then do it again? A 90-day, is it, I guess, do we know the answer to that?
I would take that as a minimum of 90 days. You have to give them notice that we are considering demolition of the building.
We could do that, no problem.
And we could put something in that said, pending a receipt of a grant from the Ohio Department of Development.
Yeah,
If we have the money, we'll do it, and if we don't, then, there's a lot of things at play between now and April 1st, and
typically, how long does it take to receive the money, and how long does it take to get whatever demolition company we choose to get in there? So we're still looking at, once we get the money, still a time frame. to get somebody in there.
I did inquire from the Port Authority what that timeline looks like with the ODOD. They did not have anything definitive to provide to us on when they would, they just know it closes in April, and then ODOD sorts through, makes the distributions and announcements. We would then follow that with an official RFP process, which we would certainly leave open for a minimum of 30 days in order to get detailed bids on what that looks like. So,
It could take a minimum of 30 days to even get the money by the time.
Right.
Yeah,
so I think certainly Mr. Unger's thoughts about giving the other owners at the mall the notices is prudent if those requirements do exist within the agreements.
So I think we should have that discussion. I would, and I agree with Mr. Unger on that. However, I would say that, to repeat the famous words of Al Haig, I'm in charge now. I think we should keep it as vague as possible, because you never know what's going to happen. You never know what's going to change. I wouldn't want us to lock us in on anything. We're the property owner now. We control it, and I would want to keep the language I wouldn't want to lock us into any commitments of anything.
I agree, but at least by giving them the notice, we could hear
Right.
what their reply was, because
Yeah.
I would try to sell it as, this is actually gonna benefit you, other mall owners. You know, if we clear that lot, it's gonna make it better for what you wanna do in the future, just to hear what their reply is.
well, we're doing our due diligence, so that's just what we'll have to do.
And I think I'd like to see kind of a, I guess, kind of a strategic explanation of how we do this to serve our best interests, to serve the best interests of Colerain. I mean, when do we do it? How do we do it? I think that there's a way that we can kind of game this out future-wise, so that we're not doing something and then reacting to something they do.
Okay.
That's really vague, I know, but I think you understand what I'm talking about. I mean, we want to know what the scenarios are and what we anticipate the response to be and what our response to response is.
As soon as we can knock it down, the better.
All right, are there any other items with regard to Northgate Mall? I will point out, in an ironic twist, I just read in the Financial Times, maybe 2 or 3 days ago, that Sears has reopened in Burbank, California, and are trying to re-energize the brand name.
Interesting.
We did look this up last week. There are still 12 stores open nationwide.
Right. And some of them are brand new, but Black Friday, nobody was there. So I don't know that the rebranding actually worked, but the excuse they gave is that they don't know what else to do with it, which is kind of interesting.
We could give them some contractors' names.
Are there any other questions, comments, concerns for the good of the cause?
When you go to read those, it's on page 29 and 30 of the 204 pages, where it starts to talk about condemning it or
Right.
selling it, just if you get a chance to read it.
Yeah, I did see that actually in advance to the, that portion in advance to the bid process.
It's some exciting reading, Matt.
Oh, it's fantastic.
It is really interesting to see the history of the development of that property. So, I don't have any other comments on that.
All right. Any motions?
I motion that we would adjourn the CIC meeting at 5:56 PM.
I'll second.
All those in favor, well, we need to do a roll call, I'm sorry.
Ms. Ulrich,
Yes.
Mr. Unger,
Yes.
Mr. Waller,
Yes.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Morvick,
Yes.
and yes.
All right. We are now closed at 5:56. Next meeting, January 23rd, the annual meeting. Thank you so much, and we will be back with you in about 3 to 4 minutes.
Okay, it is 6:01 Verizon time, time to start the regular meeting of the Board of Trustees, December 12th, 2023. Mr.
Ms. Ulrich?
Here.
Mr. Unger?
Here.
Mr. Waller?
Here, presente.
Okay, is there a need for an executive session?
I would recommend that the board go into executive session in accordance with Ohio Revised Code, Section 121.22G8, to consider confidential information related to specific business strategy and discuss negotiations with other political subdivisions respecting requests for economic development assistance, in accordance with G3 to discuss pending or imminent litigation, and in accordance with G1 to discuss compensation of public employees.
I motion that we would go into executive sessions for the reasons detailed by Administrator Weckbach.
I'll second.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Will anyone be joining us?
Yes, we will have John Heekin joining us.
Okay. Okay, time to start the regular meeting of the Board of Trustees, December 12th, 2023. So we have a roll call
Ms. Orich?
here.
Mr. Unger?
Here.
Mr. Waller?
Here.
Okay, is there anything from executive session?
Nothing to report.
Okay, then we can stand up and do the Pledge of Allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And for our moment of meditation, since this is a time of giving, I think the best gift that we can just give each other is an act of kindness. Give the gift of kindness, make someone's day, make someone's, just their family feel good. And with that, have a blessed and happy holiday to all. And I thank you. Okay, we got some approval of the minutes, Mr. Baker?
Yes, Board, thank you. Would ask for a motion for approval of the minutes from the meeting of the Board of Trustees held on November 14th, 2023.
We have a motion?
I motion that we approve the minutes from the
And do we have,
most recent meeting was November 14th meeting. Yes, I just looked through those. Thank you.
I'll second that.
okay.
Ms. Orich?
Yes,
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Thank you, Board.
and we have a,
Yes, Board, the first item on the meeting agenda is a public hearing for our sidewalk maintenance assessments. As a brief reminder, this is a program that we've done now for, I think, 3 years. And so with that, I would recommend a motion to open the public hearing.
I'll motion to open the public hearing for sidewalk maintenance assessments.
I will second it.
Ms. Orich?
yes?
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Is there anybody here who wishes to speak at the public hearing? All right, I guess I'll need to give a note then.
I'll motion to close the public hearing for sidewalk maintenance assessments.
I'll second.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Okay, now we come to citizens' address, and we only have one, and it's Mr. Eric Bacher.
Hey, Board, since I'm having technical difficulties, I'm just going to turn the countdown timer this way so
Okay.
folks can see. So,
Well, I like him. We can give him more time. I'm just, come on. Okay, no, well, you don't have 5 minutes. Come on, come on, you have 5 minutes. Oops. Just kidding. There's only one, I know, sorry.
Evening.
Nice.
Oh, we need to turn on the mic, please. Sorry. Yeah.
Thanks. I'm here today to conclude the 2023 year of Cans to Care. This is a completely volunteer program for any of the citizens of Colerain Township to just simply donate aluminum cans to, at the end of the year, get cashed in, transferred to a check, and it's all donated to the Colerain Fire Department, which is in turn given to Shriners Burn Hospital to help burn victims, as in myself. This year's total, it was a little on the low side compared to the last couple years, but still quite an amazing feat when you're considering that you're gathering aluminum cans. So after an entire year's effort and a sudden last-minute donation this evening, as a matter of fact. The year's grand total is $933.40.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I'd also like to add, if I could, in the 4 years that we have been doing this, we have raised for charity for Shriners Burn Hospital $4,218.80 total.
Hi. Now,
That's
when you load up your truck, how many pounds does it take to make, because you've showed me the pictures that you've taken to the recycling place, and it's a lot, sometimes it's more gas money for you than what you're taking down there. And you donate all your time and gas money also.
100% of everything that gets recycled is given over
Yes.
in this check.
But it's, sometimes you
Yeah,
don't,
as poundage goes, it all depends on.
I know, you don't get a
if they're
lot
crushed or
sometimes.
not,
Right.
how, many bags. Sometimes they can be just spilling over the top, and I'm just freaking out they're gonna fall on Corn Avenue.
right.
So, but, yeah,
It's a lot of work.
it's a lot of work, yes. It's a labor of love, really. Just trying to give back to those that have been in the same situation I have been, where you've been laid out in a hospital bed and uncertain of what your future is, and being a child in that situation, it would be more than what I could comprehend.
So do you want people to notify you on Facebook Messenger to pick up cans, aluminum? Is that the way you want people to get in touch with you?
Yeah, I mean, Facebook is a good way to do it, Messenger.
Okay.
I'm in a lot of the community group pages around town.
Okay.
I'm pretty easy to track down.
So with the party season coming up, it's great to save your cans for Eric.
Well, cans to care, actually, not
Cans to
not
care,
for me.
cans to care, okay.
But without further ado, I would like to present to Mr. Weckbach the check. Chief Allen cannot be present today. He has personal matters to attend to. So, Mr. Weckbach, on behalf of the people of Colerain Township, I present to you this check for $933.40.
Thank you.
Thank you.
By the way, I'll be in touch. I have another bag of Diet Coke cans, so.
And he does have to take off work to be here tonight, so another thank you.
Oh, thank you so much.
Well, thank you very much. It's a great effort you're making. Thank you.
Okay. Administrative reports?
Yes, Board, this evening we'll kick off our administrative reports with Chief Ed Cordy. As mentioned earlier, Chief Walls and Assistant Administrator McElravy are both excused from tonight's meeting.
Good evening, Chief.
Evening. Police Department, in November, we responded to 3,772 calls for service, which is roughly 126 calls per day. We're on pace for about 45,000 calls for service this year, same as last year. For the month, we conducted 376 traffic stops, made 3 OVI arrests, 82 arrests. We had 3 uses of force, 1 strike, 1 OC deployment, 1 taser deployment. We had 1 vehicle pursuit, and we did not open any internal investigations. Start looking at this a little bit differently and has been sharing this, but I think it's an interesting fact to bring up. For the month, our busiest day of the week was Wednesday and Thursday, which is interesting. It's typically Friday, Saturday. And the busiest hours are between 4 p.m. and 7 p.m. and 6 a.m. No rhyme or reason to any part of that. Our code enforcement, I do not have up-to-date stats for you, which I can get to you at a later date. Our impact team conducted 39 traffic stops, signed 11 felony charges and 9 misdemeanor charges, closed 1 felony warrant, 12 misdemeanor warrants, and 26 traffic warrants. From their activities, they seized 197 grams of marijuana, 26.6 grams of meth, 4 grams of fentanyl, 14.5 grams of cocaine, 32 unit doses of MDMA, seized and recovered 1 firearm, towed 17 vehicles, and helped the road with 91 details. Our current staffing efforts, we are at 62 officers, which includes 2 police clerks. As we know, we have a hiring freeze and we're short those 7 officers, and we're expecting to lose 1 more officer sometime in the next few weeks to another department. On December 5th, we conducted our 5th annual Shop with a Cop event, where we raised $7,000 to provide gifts to 32 kids in need. And on December 7th, we had our third annual Police Awards Gala. We gave out 35 chief commendations due to the actions of our officers throughout the year. 2 life-saving awards were issued as well to Officer Seth Hillman and Officer Brandon Wilson. And we issued of the year awards. We had a new one this year, which is Rookie of the Year, which went to Officer Zach Getz. Our Support Staff Member of the Year to Police Clerk Megan Godby. Our Officer of the Year went to Alexander Malloy, Officer Malloy. And the Supervisor of the Year went to Sergeant Zachary Meyer. That is my administrative report.
Thank you, Chief. And I apologize for not being able to make the awards gala. I had back-to-back school board meetings, so I would much rather have been at the awards gala. Let's go back to the Molly, the MDMA. How much?
32 unit doses, which is 32 pills.
Is that up or down, or
That's up from last month.
is this a trend that we're seeing? Because this is for those that that don't know. I guess you find this dealing with teenagers. MDMA is pretty serious stuff.
Most of the things that we had on the list there is pretty serious.
Right.
I would tell you that MDMA kind of comes and goes.
Okay.
So this isn't a typical one. You're usually going to have a lot of cocaine, meth, marijuana, and even fentanyl. MDMA is one that will kind of come and go.
And one thing I've noticed, just more in the city of Cincinnati, and maybe Price Hill, West Price Hill, Lower Price Hill, are the links between what is the social media called?
Facebook. Snapchat. Twitter. Instagram.
TikTok. Yeah, yeah, TikTok.
We'll get there.
Yeah, TikTok. TikTok drives the popularity in some of these street drugs, I guess, right?
Not just the street drugs, just general overall crime. The kids are learning how to steal cars from TikTok.
Oh, wonderful.
All right.
Yeah.
Kia Hyundais
Yep.
and iPhone charger.
Can somebody do some TikTok so they can do their world history homework?
Well, I was at the police gala, and it was a very wonderful event. And what the public did not see is the camaraderie with all the families and the unique friendships everybody had, and what these awards, what Ed was saying, Chief was saying about the awards. These people, police officers, got awards for saving a baby. They did life-saving measures to revive this child until the fire department got there. These police officers have come upon a scene with one of their comrades deceased, and to saving 2 mopeds. The variety of accommodations just shows how special and wonderful our police officers are here in Colerain Township. And that's how I left the gala. It was a proud representation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Board, I wanted to ask a clarifying question. You heard Ed mention that we have an officer that is exiting the department. When we met last month and talked about police department short-term strategy in order to solve funding gaps, what I'm seeking is some clarity from you all if the hiring freeze meant that we were hiring in perpetuity or if we were going to backfill any newly lost positions. And so if any of you all have insight or input into that to provide me direction, that would certainly be helpful.
So I saw it as keeping the number where it was. So if tomorrow 5 police officers leave, those 5 would replace.
Okay.
But not 6
I
or
agree.
7.
Yeah, I agree.
That's fair. Okay.
I agree with that also. And
That
I discussed
provides us the
a related
direction we
topic
need.
with you
Yes.
earlier, that we could be able to replace your person who's might be leaving.
Thank you.
That is-
Thank you, Chief, for all the hard work. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Board. The next administrative report will be presented by Assistant Administrator Mays.
Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening, Board. Thank you for your attention. The Public Services Dashboard displayed monthly visitors for the parks. It looks like we're on par for meeting or exceeding trends from 2022. Our numbers right now are at 226,777 visitors. And I wanted to remind the Board that for all 3 of our parks that we regulate with traffic counters. The traffic counters strictly count the vehicles that are coming into the park, so it is not counting the alternative form of transportation such as walking or biking, those visitors that come into the park via that method. As you can expect, Clippard and Colerain will probably see a higher volume of those types of visitors. So keep in mind that number that I just presented to you is probably a little lower than what we actually do see at our parks. And for the bags of litter, we are once again exceeding our target per month. With this month, we did 2,350 bags, and our target is 25. So we're way above par on that one. The last report I would like to provide you is our aggregation report for Q3. Electric is running well, of course. We expected that to happen throughout the year. Since this past May, when we renewed our aggregation contract, we have saved the program has saved the residents over 30% and more than $140. So it's always good to save that little bit of money, especially with this time of year. With the holidays. And gas is running as expected due to supply and demand, of course. We're expecting to see those better numbers in the winter months when we have a better supply and demand for that product. That's all I have.
I had a quick question for you for Clippard.
Yes, sir.
At one point, and I don't know, maybe we deviated from this and I forgot about it, which is quite possible. At one point, we either had that locked or we had entrance past a certain hour because it would be somewhat of a nuisance for people at 2 a.m. I understand from some residents now that is it not being locked now, or is it not being blocked off at night?
So what we did was we originally put up some Jersey barriers in the park and just made it a hard stop because most of the complaints were that cars were cutting through. Mm-hmm. Since then, if I remember correctly, when I drove through it, we've placed a new gate that remains locked, but it's in the middle of the drive-through. So there may be a couple people who don't see, a gate at the very front and they still cut in, and then they hit that gate in the middle and they have to turn around and come out. But the idea is to deter those folks that are using it as the cut through. To be honest, I haven't heard complaints myself just yet, but I know 2-3 years ago when we first did this, it was nonstop.
Constant, right.
And it was because you had cars cutting through left and right. And it's interesting when we look at our park data, you actually see a huge drop in Clippard right after that because you don't have cars that are just using it for thoroughfare to get home.
So whose responsibility is it to lock that and then unlock it in the morning?
The gate is permanently locked.
Okay. So I was told by one resident that it's how to be unlocked.
That is news to me, and,
Okay.
and so we can follow up internally just to make sure that
Okay.
there's not something going on that we're not aware of. But the intent was for it to remain locked at all times. I say that I'm aware of it because one day I went to the park to check some things out, and then I was going to cut out to Dew Hill, and I couldn't, so I had to turn around and go back out Beavis.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, the next administrative report will be presented by Development Director Miller.
Mr. Miller, welcome back. Yeah. Permission to approach. Permission to move about in the well.
Picture for you, Matt.
Oh, good. Or as we like to say, down in Tennessee where I'm from, a pitcher.
Picture.
Yeah. Or my family's from.
All kind of pretty colorful charts here. Okay.
Thank you, David.
I was tempted to say that the number of zoning certificates that we've issued this year, this is a year-to-date report in front of you, so we're only at December 12th, so it'll go up from here. But I was tempted to say we were going to rival Mr. Baker in his public records request, but I think we're still a ways off of that. I'll mention just November, we were at 52 total certificates for Board of Zoning appeal cases, 3 zoning commission. We only had 3 single-family homes, 26 residential permits, 4 solar, and 12 commercial. But if you will look at the non-pie charts, so the total number of permits for 2023, we're at 500 residential permits that we've issued. You think that's just that 60 a month, and it's more than that because we're not even through December. The non-residential, which would be commercial, you can see again broken down by category, 108. So we're at 608 certificates through the year. If you'll just jump over to a pie chart on the residential permits issued, you can see by far your new single family dwellings make up 22% of all that we have done. So it's new attached single family dwelling, 108 according to the spreadsheet. But again, interesting picture there as you can look through. These all require a significant amount of time when you really got to dig down in the details. Others, decks and fences can be pretty quick and just crank those out. But there is a lot of care, I believe, taken by staff to ensure that what our zoning resolution specifies or the requirements, that the applicant is meeting those. And so I am very happy with the work that staff's doing on this, particularly our 2 planners, and I with them. There just continues to be a lot of activity, and so happy to answer any questions if you have any.
And to add a little perspective that we would have seen with the visuals, last year was our highest watermark on permits, and that was 595 through November. So we are outpacing last year through November. And what's not told in this is BZA and zoning commission cases, which we're currently at the second highest number of cases through November, with the highest coming back in 2014. So we're seeing some unprecedented volumes of work that's coming into our planning department, which really speaks to folks wanting to do business, wanting to live and move into Colerain. And I would imagine, just like this past year when the business courier came out and cited Colerain as one of the top 3 most active markets in the region, I would imagine we're probably going to be right up there again based on what these numbers are doing.
We have another developer, well, it's actually the same developer that is getting ready to start on a new subdivision that's already been through some BZA approvals, but what they're looking at is just adding density. They've come back with another approach and saying, we've done the 3 single-family attached, landominiums over in Dunlap. This is going to be the Beavis subdivision. They've now changed developers or builders to D.R. Horton. And again, single-family residents, and they're going to bump it, I think, from 92 to 99. And so that's going to add more single-family residences.
That's at Dunlap Grove?
No.
Dunlap Grove is...
It's changed from...
No, it's the same developer. This is the former Beavis Elementary School site.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Graham Parlam. We've met with him and his staff, and so they've brought back a revision that says, we think we can increase the density and go up to 99 homes on this one subdivision on the old Beavis Elementary site. And
How many
so-
total acres is that Beavis Elementary site?
I think it's
forget.
not a lot.
Well, I've sold houses all
11?
adjoining that. I just wondered how many.
I have forgotten how many
I know,
acres
okay.
it was.
Mr. Miller, at the Hamilton Road exit, and I think might have known this at one point but forgotten it. What is being developed kind of across from the Wendy's and
Okay, so that's Houston Road.
Houston? That's right. Yeah.
Right, so west side of Hamilton is Colerain, and then
Right.
right side would be Springfield Township and maybe some other.
So Houston
But
is the separator.
Houston,
Okay.
you got Houston, Dallas, it does a hard left, and then Houston goes back into the residence. So those are going to be attached condos.
But they'll be
and
in
I believe
Springfield.
Those are,
Those are going to be those will be Colerain.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
it's Cresso Builders?
On the east side, Cristo
Cristo.
Homes.
And they're
are the ones-
single
They're
floors.
single-family attached.
Yes, but, so
Yeah,
more of a.
it look, the
Yes.
ideas that they brought us look like a very nice product.
Right.
So how many units of
I
that?
believe it's 22 or 24,
Okay.
what they're going to end up with there.
And we're gonna work up a TIF on that?
Absolutely. TIF it all.
And Dan was correct. According to the auditor's website, that parcel for the 99 homes is an 11-acre
11
site.
acre.
I was thinking 11 or 14.
And that goes to show I can remember stuff from 15 years ago when I was on the other board.
Okay.
Even the blind
And that's a
squirrel
lot of,
finds
that's a
one.
lot, okay, David, I heard that. Your mic is still on. But that said, that's a lot of houses for 11 acres. That's a lot of residential
is.
dwellings.
Yeah.
And I appreciate their desire, obviously, to
They must think
add
they're gonna
density.
sell them.
They, with it being Horton, they feel good about one of the largest home builders in the nation, and changing from their current contract to Horton, and then it benefits them, but it benefits us as well, and so.
So will the streets back there eventually be township streets?
Yes.
And will they be, you're gonna have a hard time getting a 24-foot wide street in there. Are they gonna be 20-foot wide or 18? Or it sounds like there's not gonna be a whole lot of street parking for that many homes. And I'm sure you've got all that worked out. You're presenting this to us, so that's why I'm asking.
Yeah, so all of that's going through the county subdivision process, and so
Okay.
they're abiding by what the county tells us.
Right,
is the
because by the time you get a school bus in there and a
Yeah.
parked cars,
And
it gets
unfortunately,
pretty
even if we were
tight.
to object to it, there's nothing we could do to
Right.
stop it because they have the zoning by rights and what
Sure.
have you, so.
Just perspective, how many is Ryan building at Dunluck Grove?
That is 62 homes.
62, and that is on what, 10 acres? Or 8 acres? I can't, well, when you look that up, I'm just trying to get it in perspective if they have 60.
Sure. I mean, that's a lot of,
yeah,
which is
yeah.
fine.
So they're just going to be talking, are they talking about individual or are they stacked condos?
They're not stack condos, they're gonna be the same,
Okay,
same type of Dunlap,
okay,
but just four single-family attached instead of 3.
okay, okay.
Nice to know that with the interest rates where they're at, that somebody's willing to make that type of
Yeah.
investment in residential.
They do feel confident that they can move this product through.
Well, they're doing very well at Banning and Pippin there also. You can see all those houses going up. Yeah,
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
thank you.
Board, for my administrative report, I'll try to keep it brief. Again, thank you, Eric, for all you do in terms of the Cans to Care initiative. This year, I know Helen has tried to help out a little bit, and we've got little buckets through the office where we're collecting soda cans from ourselves, and I think she's trying to do the same in the fire department, so hopefully we can help get the numbers up for next year even more. So, but thank you again for doing that on behalf of us. That's incredible. I'm sure one of you will speak a little bit about GSL Monastery, but that was a new group that opened shop after a long history of just challenges that they've had in terms of getting building permits and what have you. So this is a Buddhist monastery that opened up in the township the day before Thanksgiving. Really neat ceremonies, but in talking to their owner and their operator and Frank Birkenauer, who was here during a lot of their trials and tribulations, that group operated out of a trailer for the longest time. So it's really neat to see them have a home and to see them have that establishment, and it was really something to see those ceremonies. I also, over the past couple weeks, was able to present to the state capital budget Cincinnati Business Committee on some capital improvements that we'd like to make at Heritage Park for next year. So if our state legislatures are watching, please keep in mind that we see a real need there to make some improvements in that park. And then finally, I was able to attend a legislative event hosted by the local chambers of commerce. This was just this past week, actually, where we heard about some of the main issues that are going on throughout the state. So, of course, there was discussion about how recreational marijuana would affect a lot of employers. But beyond that, there was a big focus on small business and some of the different state initiatives that are moving around. So there's likely going to be a state ballot initiative next year, it sounds like, that's going to deal with tipping and whether or not tipping is going to be allowed in Ohio at restaurants and different facilities like that. So that's something that is on the radar and just felt like passing that along.
Hold on, tipping would not be permitted?
Yes, so there are movements in some states and jurisdictions where they have banned tipping as part of your dining experience. And so it's really changed the landscape for these smaller restaurants and how they, then pay their staff and all these different things. So
Interesting. I don't know how you ban tipping. It seems to me if money is constitutional speech that
Well,
tipping.
I think how you ban it is by telling employers that you can't pay someone the tippable wage level. You have to pay them now
Okay.
$14 an hour, $15, whatever that number is instead. And so that's how you, quote unquote,
I was in,
ban it.
yeah,
So,
I was in Switzerland, left a tip, and she ran out of the restaurant. No tipping, no
yeah.
tipping.
So anyway, thought that was worth sharing because that was the first I had heard of that as well, and figured if that's coming down the pike, it'd be good for us to get that on the radar. And with that, I will conclude administrative reports.
Okay, then we'll do the trustee reports, and I just want to be on the back of yours. They really invited us.
monastery.
Yes, I want to, okay, it is at 3046 Pavlova. It is a beautiful retreat. If you want to walk, it's just to go back and go view it. The building is incredibly gorgeous. They are so friendly there, and then you can go on their website, and they do have meditation classes that is open to the public. They're doing Zoom right now, but sometimes you can go in there and do some meditation. But they gave us, each of us, our silk little scarves and invite us into the ceremony for the blessing of the ceremony. It was just a beautiful time. What the interesting part is, what people don't realize, what a coup for Colerain Township. There's people there from Tibet, Switzerland, Athens, across the globe. And it was just a beautiful experience listening to all of them in their pilgrimage, because they were going to the one in Indianapolis. And they also gave us a award made from wood from Tibet that we will post in our lobby. But they are a true, beautiful addition to Colerain Township. And that's all I wanted to say tonight.
Sure, I'll go. I will keep it brief. Everybody have a good holiday season. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. That's it. Stay safe. Love each other.
That's right, Matt. So, Jeff, the question that's on the community's mind, and I've received several calls from and forwarded them to you, is when will the senior bus be back on the road?
Soon. So the bus.
Last week you told me December 12th, so.
Yes. So it was supposed to be back in our shop on Monday. There were some minor repairs that we needed to make, and it should be able to be out soon. And I say soon because there are some operational issues from a staffing perspective that we still have to cross. We currently only have 2 people that are certified to drive that bus, and so if one of them is out, it really puts a strain on the availability. So
Sure, and the gentleman who I won't say his name, but he identified himself as a 93-year-old. When I called him back to give him your answer, I bought you a couple days, so you need to have it going by Thursday, so just so you know. I wanted to give a little credit to Matt, because way back in the beginning of the year, when we looked at the far-off November election and saw that issue 2, the marijuana issue, was going to be on the ballot, you came up with, we probably need to develop some type of rules and get them into place, which we did prior to the election. And I've just been amazed at what I've heard on the news just the last few days of Green Township's doing this, Madeira's jumping in, and we were way out ahead on that, Matt, and that was your idea, and I'm glad we had it done before the election so people knew that. So good for a way to get out on front on that. You know, when you give out your phone number like I do, 513-404-3057, you do get a lot of calls, not just about the senior bus, but most recently about a couch that's on Pippin Road that Jeff's going to get taken care of for us. And to those of you that think it's a great thing to dump your couch over the guardrail, please don't. It costs the taxpayers money. It costs everybody in this room money. We send people out there. It probably costs us $100 to go pick it up. Two employees in a pickup truck, and then we have to dispose of it.
Else,
and anybody that goes up and down 27, you'll notice that Rumpke's building a drive-up facility to make it a lot easier to dispose of such things. And when that opens up, you'll be able to just go right in off Struble Road with your couch instead of dumping it off on Pippin Road. And hopefully that helps the community a lot. And I know Rumpke's making quite an investment in in that building, and maybe by January, we'll have an update on when it'll be open. The walls are up, the roof's not on it, but it looks like they're making progress. Let's see here, the Police Recognition Event Awards. I thought the most interesting thing about that was you hear all these terrible stories that our people tell, but to hear them all in succession as we're handing out awards, it really gives you a great picture of what our folks are actually doing, and some of it's not pretty. And as I've said so many times, by the time you call the police or the fire, you're probably having the worst day of your life. And you know, you're hoping that our people can come in and get a situation secured or resolved. And it's just really something to hear those stories one after another. And all those awards that Chief handed out are certainly deserved. The last thing I wanted to talk about is there such a thing as the Ohio Public Works Commission Integrating Committee, and long ago I was appointed as an alternate member, meaning if the seated member can't make it that day, they'll give me a call and I'll show up. And I did attend that meeting on December 2nd, and it was held in the chambers over at our neighbor Springfield Township. And I just to give you a little bit of what goes on there is different municipalities can apply for grants or awards to help offset the cost of a project. And for example, Sycamore Townships, and then those projects are rated. And Sycamore Township came in first with the most points for the Marieview Court and Frayne Lane culvert replacement. The project was $1,860,000. The grant request was $930,000, and they were actually awarded $970,000 based on all the different judgments that lead to a point score for these things. And I'm just going to run down this list of people who applied and were awarded. Would be Sycamore, Loveland, Woodlawn, Silverton, Columbia Township, Cincinnati with yet another Columbia Parkway landslide, Reading, Cheviot, Mount Healthy, Norwood, and Harrison. And then there's a cutoff because at that point there was only $2.258 million left in the account. Well, the first runner-up was Cincinnati on Warsaw Avenue, if you're familiar with it. I'm sure you are, Matt, because you head over that way for work every day. And Warsaw, their project lost some points because they couldn't demonstrate that it improved capacity for cars to flow through 6 intersections on Warsaw Avenue. So the city of Cincinnati appealed the rating on that, and they went back and looked and said nothing's changed. It's not going to approve the capacity by those 2 intersections. And the reason that Cincinnati appealed it was they were looking for a $4 million grant towards that $6.1 million project, and the reason they weren't awarded as the first runner-up or the 12th award was because there wasn't $4 million left in the account. There was only $2.2 million left in the account. And then it goes on to some of the other communities that were runners-up, such as Gulf Manor, St. Bernard, Springdale, Mount Healthy, and in talking to Mr. Slim over there and some others, it seems like Colerain Township used to participate in this, and we haven't this year. I think when we had our Burnside and the Jackie's subdivisions, that was some skip grants.
Yes, those were the last 2 skip grants. In the years after, what we've actually done is partnered with the county, and they've been the lead grantee. You lose points if you have projects in your community competing against each other. So all those East Miami River Road projects that were done by the county were through the SKIP project.
Right, and that was a nice project, and then East Miami River Road got paved.
Yeah.
But, so our process, if, you know, that was in the past, and we were always looking towards next year, and this was actually the grant projects for fiscal year 25, which I think starts July 1st of 24, maybe.
Yep. State fiscal year, yes.
So for us to always be on the lookout for projects that we can apply for funding for, and you're pretty knowledgeable on this, what do we have to do to get to be? And there's nothing that stops us from partnering with the county and going after this at the same time.
We can. If the county is applying for something and we apply for something, our points will somewhat offset at different levels. We have looked at our multi-year road plan, and the next road that we have that we think is skip eligible is Amarillo Court, and that's because
It's almost down to gravel because I know where that is.
And the issue with these skip projects is they have to be very meaty, right? So it's got to be more than just a mill and fill, as you're referencing.
There's nothing left of Amarillo Court.
And the other issue with Amarillo, which is why to me is a great project for a skip is that it probably needs to be raised a couple feet to deal with some of the flooding issues that are going on there.
Which
with
is
creek
why
bed.
the pavement is deteriorated, because it's been underwater and.
So that's on the radar. In terms of the process, the biggest piece is, we don't have engineering staff, and so we usually have to contract with an engineer or engineering firm to have them draw up the plans that are required as part of the submission. So, nope, it's totally on our radar. It's
Right, and I know
been
we
set
have a
out
bank
in the
of
plan. So,
Pre-qualified engineers that we established a couple years ago.
Yes.
And in discussions with another staff member here, that staff member mentioned that might come up in January or February to add a few more to that list. And sometimes you can, meet with those folks and say, go out and develop a project.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Go look at Amarillo. You take care of it, come back to us. If you can get it set up and do all the grant paperwork
Yep.
and get it awarded, then it's your project to do,
and that's
because you.
oftentimes how we approach
Right.
those.
So,
yep.
and then the other thing we talked about at that meeting is this list is a little shorter than it's been in previous years, because some of these agencies have partnered with Metro, like we did
Yeah.
2 years ago to get the improvement on Colerain Avenue, which is a state road, but it got those 2 bus stops, which I drove past today, and it does help out bit by bit by bit. But, one thing I've always tried to do is encourage every member of our staff to be out looking for grants and that. And I just wanted to mention, I had gone to this meeting, and I understand why Colerain isn't on here and not on the LTIP grants either, but
Yeah.
but I think there's always potential to perform our most primary function here, which is police, roads, and fire.
Yep, and it's we've been using that to apply for sidewalk funding, and that's been part of that strategy as well. With the skip grants, especially as you report back or if you are able to serve as the designee, one of the challenges that myself and some of the administrators of other townships have found, which affects our scoring directly, is that there's not a penalty for past performance. And some of the entities that are awarded large sums of money do not necessarily complete the projects in the timelines that they're supposed to. And so
That's
there are these,
certainly an issue with the first place
There-
runner-up.
there are some of the dollars then that sit, and then it gets to a point where District 8 turns around and says, well, you all haven't spent this money, we're sending it back to the state, to other entities. And so we've all kind of suffered, and that does hurt our point total, because the bigger meteor projects aren't necessarily as prevalent in the townships, because a lot of our roads are local roads, and so we're not typically doing the type of project like we did on Burnside or Jackie's, where we are doing a complete reconstruction of the road, completely ripping out all the water sewer. So usually, and that's where I think you mentioned Sims or Sycamore, having that culvert that is such an expensive project. Anytime we have something of that volume is typically when we start to target it. And so we've had Amarillo on our list for a few years. I think we had been targeting it for reconstruction in 2026, and so that's probably going to be the next one that we apply for with SCIP.
Great. Please keep us updated. I wanted to mention I had gone to that meeting and found it very enlightening.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
I think that's all I had, and I would like to wish everyone a happy holiday and Merry Christmas, and I'll throw it back to Kathy. Thank you.
Mr. Unger, are you I can't remember, are you our OKI rep? Or is it?
I think I'm going to be, again, I'm the alternate, or I'm the primary, and then there's
Okay.
somebody else on staff that's the alternate.
So let me put a bug in your ear. There's been talk, I don't know if you've seen this, from the city of Cincinnati, to change the voting and make it more based upon, I think right now it's per each community. They want to make it population-based, which may or may not put a thumb on the scale on the projects. So I think that the townships OKI includes, Kentucky, Indiana. Townships and cities have a vested interest in keeping the voting the way it is.
Sure.
Instead of, and I don't know what we need to do to get some collective action to tell Cincinnati no thanks. But essentially, if they have the voting, if they do it by voting weight, they're going to get everything.
Well, and to date, with the current structure, at least when I was the designee for the ICC, the Intermodal Coordinating Committee, I am not aware of a negative vote that ever actually occurred. So with the way that it's currently set up, the staff recommendation is what typically does move forward. And the staff recommendations that OKI puts forward are based very heavily on criteria and fact and real tangible data and evidence. So I do appreciate a lot of the work that they put in. And so to your point, I hope that we continue to do that moving forward, because that's really important.
And the thing that I found odd is that, I guess I misspoke a little bit, they weren't going to change the OK, they were first going to change it in the Cincinnati charter, which I don't know how the charter can dictate to OKI what they're going to do, but it seems to have been all over the place by just
Yeah.
we've got a vested interest in keeping it the way it is.
Sure.
We've gotten a number of grants through OKI, and as have other smaller communities. You know, not that I want to throw shade on Cincinnati, but, you know, there are other places in Hamilton County besides the city of Cincinnati.
Well, and OKI also uncovered
Kentucky and
Dearborn
Indiana.
County.
Yeah.
Yep.
And there are very nice folks at that meeting that I was at. They actually wanted to have a third appeal. When they had their initial submittal, and they got a 0 on that, improving the capacity at those 2 intersections. They appealed it, and this is by engineers, and it was so funny because everybody in the room was stating, I'm not a traffic engineer. And of course, I'm not, and when I came to my vote on it, and when it was open for discussion, I said, I just heard 5 different people in this room say they're not traffic engineers. Well, I'm not one either, and the traffic engineers that did review this have determined that there's 0 points awarded for that, so I don't think there's going to be a third appeal, so, on that Warsaw project. But anyway, it's very interesting, and I appreciate the favor of my other 2 board members in keeping me as the alternate for those meetings, so. That's all I have, Kathy.
Okay, so new business?
All right, first item of new business, I will do my best Chief Wall's impersonation. This is a motion authorizing the Township Administrator to execute an agreement with Silco for Fire Station 26 and 102 cameras in the amount of $23,908.76. This agreement is essentially all of the internal and external cameras that will be part of our fire stations. We have cameras currently in designated locations and similar locations on all of our existing fire stations, including this building. And so this is just for continuity of how we operate, and this would be compatible with our existing systems. And I would recommend adoption of the motion.
I'll motion to authorize Township Administrator to execute agreement with Silco for Fire Station 26 and 102 cameras for $23,908.76.
I'll second. Any
Is
discussion?
this for the new buildings or the old ones?
New buildings.
Okay.
So this is
And that's built into the not-to-exceed price?
Yep, this is built into the soft cost portion of the budget, which is why we're contemplating it as a standalone.
Okay.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Thank you, Board. The next several items are from the Police Department. To start to introduce this next one as Ed comes up, this is a resolution for ballot language for you all to contemplate for the next upcoming levy cycle. So there are 3 separate resolutions attached to this agenda item, all based on the 3 separate certifications that you all sent down to the auditor at the last board meeting. I believe Ed and I are here to answer any questions you all have, but I would recommend that as you all move forward, when you introduce your motion, that you specify which resolution you are moving forward based on the millage amounts. So those millage amounts were 3 mils, 3.65 mils, or 3.99 mils.
Well, I'd like to discuss each one of them, so I will motion, and this would be for March of 2024, whenever the Ohio primary
Yeah,
is.
so
I
this
don't,
would contemplate, I think it's March 19th.
and just to get it out there for discussion, I'd motion that we would put a 3 mil levy on the ballot for the Ohio primary in March of 2024.
So I'll second it with the idea that we can discuss all 3 numbers under the rubric of the 3.0,
Okay.
if that's agreeable to the board.
Sure. And great, and it looks like it would generate $5,456,000 per year, and then what we were asking for back in November was $6,313,000, so that's about a $900,000 difference. And the results of the last levy that was on in November was 8,302 people for it and 10,756 against, so it was a 56 to 44. And, you know, we need to put something on that will pass. And I'd consider a higher amount, but if we're gonna do it in March, I would I want to put something on that'll pass. You know, we've talked about taking a lot of the capital purchases out of your budget. You know, I know you've worked a lot to try to make things work with where we sit today, and this would be $105 for every 100,000. In my own situation, my house, it was $198,000. It stayed right around there for a long time. This would be based on the new incredible value that the auditor has determined that my house is worth $279,000, which how they get a 40% increase or 35% increase in the valuation. So it would end up costing, what would that be, 210, about $300 a year, as opposed to the other one, which was $330 a year, the one that just failed. So we need to put something on that'll pass. If this doesn't, whatever we end up doing in March, if it doesn't pass, that's going to really be devastating.
So that we're comparing apples with apples, could we go through for those at home, to the per 100,000 on each, the 365, the 399?
The 3.6
30 cents per dollar for the 3.
Yes, so the 3.0, I
is
believe,
105.
the 3.65 is 128, and the 3.99 is 140.
And the 3.65 actually generates 325,000 more than you were asking for in November. Because it's, according to Bridget Kelly, it says 6,638,000, and our issue was for 6,313,000 that was on in November.
Yes.
And then the other one, the
Yep,
3.99 would generate,
7.25.
what I'm reading here is letters that we've gotten from the auditor certifying these. It would generate 7,256,000 per year,
Yes,
which
that
is
correct.
900,000 more than the 6,313,000 from November of '23.
I was a little surprised to see the numbers come back. I didn't expect them to come back the way they did initially. So I think 399 is too high. I tend to support the 365 is where I'll be, which it's kind of funny because I just threw it in there at the last second because I honestly thought that the 399 was going to be equivalent to what the last one was, which is or close to it, and of course it wasn't. What would happen then? We haven't approached the season where people dispute the assessment. Would that change the calculus on this at all?
I don't believe so. So my understanding is the estimated annual revenue is the amount that gets collected. So if others were to change their amounts because they went through the dispute process, the auditor is certified to collect essentially that amount. So, and even if you did see disputes come through, unless you're going to see a historic number of disputes, I doubt that you'd even see a major impact across the board, across all of our certifications. Just and for perspective, the auditor sent us along what they anticipated our general fund revenue to be for next year, and it's only about an increase of 120,000. And so, if that helps provide some perspective, that despite this 20 to 40% increase that folks are seeing, it's a very negligible amount in terms of our total budget.
And this would begin, if any of these were to pass, would begin in 2025.
2025,
It would be due January of '25.
Yeah.
which is technically tax year 24.
Right. I had another question that just must not have been important.
So, Chief, your budget, how are you finishing out this year?
We're doing pretty well. It's not finalized. Nancy's still closing some purchase orders, and we're finalizing everything. We're right around 4.6 mil right now in the bank, if you will. We have quite a few different things that are still coming out, but I think our expectation or our goal is to somewhere between 3.6 and 4. I think it's going to be closer to 4 that we'll be carrying over.
Right, and that would last you, if nothing passes, how long would that last you?
You want to answer it? We won't make it through 2024.
Yeah, so yes, I believe that is the best way to look at it because of the $900,000 gap that you'd be spending down that $4 million in year one by $900,000 and then another, so you'd get 3 years roughly just give or take.
Right, but
and-
I mean, for 24, regardless, since this does not collect till 25, we're gonna have to
Without,
move
without
some money.
passing a levy, we won't make it through 2024, if I
So-
understand your question.
So in
But I mean,
20,
if we pass this in March, you're not gonna see the first dollar of it until 25.
that is correct.
So we are not gonna make it through the end of 24 unless we move some money from the general
And the
fund into your
currently
budget.
contemplates a $2 million transfer from the general fund to the police fund to cover the gap that is anticipated to exist by year end of next year.
I'll also point out, so Mr. Unger pointed out the 365 is slightly more than they asked for. We could draw back. So what was the number you gave? 365 is how much more?
What we asked for was 6,313,000 back in,
It's a few $100,000.
Yeah, a couple hundred thousand. We could draw that back from the general fund, so it's not that, we're not gonna increase the budget correspondingly based upon that.
And I just would like you to tell the public why we have the overage, because we were short officers this year.
Yeah, from the beginning of the year, we were projected and assumed that we would be at 67 officers. With renegotiation of the school district, that number went up to 69 officers. We never got close to that number. Starting at 47 officers as we were last year and getting up to where we were at, we're pretty lucky and blessed to have hit the 62 that we're currently at.
Right.
But those numbers are never gonna,
We're not gonna see
that's
that.
a large amount.
Yeah, we're not gonna see that.
On top of that,
Yes.
receiving some of the grants and different items that we've been receiving, we got very lucky with our drug forfeitures and using that to offset quite a few things as well. So frankly, proper budgeting and being undermanned, understaffed.
So 2025 would be now 11 years on a 5-year budget.
Yes.
Correct.
Yes, that is correct.
That's impressive, and I thank you for that hard work. It's, the last thing anybody wants to do is pay more taxes, but I think we're in a time when we need to really define where we're at when it comes to law enforcement. I think that we're getting ready to enter a pretty polarizing time where we're going to need you guys a lot. So,
One other thing, just to add for some perspective, with something that's sort of circulating at the State House, because this is going to affect both our police and fire, as well as all of our other staff. There are a few bills that are being floated to correct some deficits in the pension system that would increase the employer share that would be required for these various funds. So I don't remember the exact amount, but if it's something like a 4 to 5% increase on OPNF and 6% for OPERS LE, and 4 or so % for regular staff. So those are going to be some significant budgetary impacts if that passes. Again, that's a state issue though, so that's something that I would encourage you all to reach out to your friends at the State House and at least remind them of the impact that has on townships like us that are so property tax dependent for our operations.
and I think there's some talk of marijuana, statewide marijuana receipts helping with that.
There have been several bills floated. I think there was one that was floated days after it was passed that was contemplating changing the entire formula to eliminate the entire local piece that was originally set in the legislation. So it's just, I'm not sure, and I am not going to guess what the tea leaves are going to say on that by the time everything settles.
I think I said it when it happened, and I completely stand by. Local's not going to get 36%. And I could almost guarantee that, but that's a different day. All right,
So
we have a motion for three.
let me,
Go ahead.
so I'm just sitting here working this out, what the difference between what was on the ballot in November and my old valuation would have made my bill $330.89 with my new evaluation, and the rate based on that would be $292, so the levy would cost me $38 less, which is fine. My wife and I can cover this. It's no problem. But there's a lot of people who can't, and looking at how hard that last levy went down, I just want to get something that we can be sure will pass. And at 3 mills, Chief, I will find you money in the general fund to help you out with this. I think we all want to get the department funded. It's just, once again, we're where we were July 22nd with just different ideas of how we're going to do that. But if we're gonna put this on, I want it to pass.
I do believe the ballot said $167 per, the last,
It was the one,
162, sorry.
Yeah, and what's
And so the middle road was 128, so it's almost, what's
well, and what's
$39.
Right, but that's
difficult with
based
this
on a
is
new
all based off
valuation.
your valuations, and that's what's frustrating at times when you talk to people with the way that the tax law on property taxes is set up in Ohio. You've got two different millage amounts within a 4-month time span that generate roughly the same dollar value. In fact, one is a full mill lower and generates more revenue. And that, to me, speaks to some of the challenges that there are in terms of educating the average person on how this system works, because it's not the easiest thing, right? It's very complicated. And as Dan was even doing the math on his own home, you know, at these different amounts, he's going to wind up paying less, yet it's going to generate more. So that's where these things can seem hard at times for folks to grasp their minds around.
Let's say I've got the ballot language here from November, and the additional tax for the benefit of Colerain Township for a police department, the auditor estimates will collect $6,313,000 annually at a rate not exceeding 4.65 mils for each dollar, which amounts to $163 for each 100,000. So anybody that does the math on, and I'm not saying the three of us, I'm saying anybody that does the math on this new levy is going to look at it and go, wow, with my new valuation, this actually cost me more. And, you know, when I went to even though I voted no on that rate in July, when I went to the ballot in November, I voted for it because I understand it. But a lot of 10,756 people did not. So, and I just as soon try to get this passed and, you know, see where we go from there. But thank you for allowing me to speak to it. I will find you the money somewhere if, you know, whatever happens. So.
Thank you.
So, do we make a motion for the?
We have a motion.
Do we vote on the 3 first, and then?
I would think that, and if that
doesn't
passes, it
pass?
passes. If it doesn't pass, we,
So let's vote on the 3% millage.
Ms. Orich?
No.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
no. All right, so I will motion to set the levy language at 3.65 mils.
Okay, I'll second your motion.
And if there's room for any additional discussion, I will, whatever happens, I will find you the money in the general fund or somewhere. I fully support what we're doing with our police. I just want something that I think will pass. So that's my only other comment.
All right?
Mr. Baker?
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
No.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
So that will put that on you'll prepare that and send that to the Board of Elections.
Yes, we have a very tight window, so just making sure that we all get that document signed tonight, that will be of the utmost importance.
Thank you so much.
And thank you, Chief, for understanding. We all three want to get you funded. It's just we all have different ideas about it, so.
I get it. I do not have C with me.
Okay, that's perfectly fine. All right, Board, the next item on the agenda is a motion to appoint members to the Code Enforcement Review Board. So if you all remember, this is a new initiative that we've brought forward as a way to help process our various code issues. In order to walk before we run, we want to specifically target and work on vacant properties and rental registration property issues, meaning that folks that aren't registering for those what have you, those under those resolutions as they're required to, that they would come before this board. This board would weigh the merits of their case, whether or not they should remain as either a vacant, not a vacant, a rental, not a rental, and then provide a recommendation to you all that would either assess or not assess taxes directly for failure to register or to register them. As part of that, there are bylaws that we adopted that set forth who gets to be appointed and by whom. And so in the packet, you'll find a list of individuals based on selections made by each one of you, as well as the fiscal officer and myself. And the recommended slate of individuals to be appointed are Jennifer Baldwin, Ellen Westfall, Stephen Schaefer, Gary Henson, and Tracy Miller. and I would recommend adoption of the motion.
Point of inquiry, or order, do we need to, can we adopt them all at once, or do we need to individually vote? Okay, so I'll motion to appoint members, as Mr. Weckbach indicated, is in the board packet, to the Code Enforcement Review Board.
I will, go ahead.
I'll second. Any discussion?
Sure, I appreciate the folks, everybody who applied to help out with this project, and realizing they're going to have meetings to attend, and I'm very grateful for any community members that offer their time and expertise to this endeavor.
So I'll just add, I think this is fantastic. The idea then that that we involve more citizens in some of the issues facing Colerain, and there is, if you don't like the person one of us appointed, you can take it out on us at the ballot box. That's what democracy is all about. And I think it's fantastic because there's a term in government and political science called functionalism. The more people that we have involved just slightly end up getting involved in more and more things, and it spreads, and their contacts get involved more, and it makes a better community. It reminds me the 1600s democracy in New England with the selectmen, and it's just a fantastic expression of citizen-led government, and that these folks are going to be making the decision instead of somebody that's just maybe a nameless department. I think that's fantastic. Thank you for everyone that applied. I had a hard time selecting, and I'm not going to weigh candidates against each other. I think everybody had positives, but I'm very happy with the selection that I made, and think will represent Colerain well. And this is really, I don't know, for lack of a better term, really neat.
So, and just to talk about their term of service would be as long as Mr. Baker or the three of us are.
Yeah, so they'll all be staggered, and those are set forth in the bylaws, so I can't remember exactly how they're staggered, but they're set to end, I believe, the year after any of you have the potential to cycle off the board, so that there's a little bit of consistency and congruency, and so that, if we're making these appointments in November, you're not appointing on behalf of the next trustee. There would be that 1 year overlap, so whomever follows behind.
So if for some reason I'm not back here in 26, my appointee could serve throughout 26, and then that new trustee would have a chance during that year to evaluate if they wanted to keep Steve or
That's my understanding.
belong to their next person. Well, that's good, because it does give consistency, and I appreciate the time everybody's put into this, and I'm looking forward. Ultimately, our goal is to get Colerain to be a cleaner, better place, and I just think in the last, as we discussed earlier, in the last 5 or 6 years, we have just made huge strides towards just keep picking off those small issues like the couch I discussed earlier, and you can just try to stay ahead of that and get people in line and have them clean up their properties. And I'm not trying to take anybody's property rights, but your neighbor has rights also. They don't need to look out and see a pile of junk in your yard. So I think this is going to be a great thing.
I do too, and I thank you for some of the members that are here tonight that volunteered and applied. I think each person brings a different perspective. We have an accountant, we have a real estate person, we have an engineer. So we have a broad spectrum of intelligence coming into this board, so I look forward to everything you come up with.
Ms. Ulrich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Okay, item D, resolution declaring nuisance and ordering abatement. This resolution allows for the removal of uncontrolled vegetation and/or refuge at the following properties: 3136 Deshler Drive, 9796 Dunraven Drive, 2522 Impala Drive, 7218 Jamarine Court, 2832 John Rose, 3561 Kemper Road, 3026 Libra Lane, 9590 Laura Linda Drive, 7068 Memory Lane, 2922 Royal Glen Drive, 2457 Shone Drive, 9661 Week Road, and 9870 Week Road. Recommend adoption of the resolution.
I motion that we approve the resolution declaring nuisance and ordering abatement on the properties Chief has described.
I'll second that.
Any discussions?
Thank you for all the work you're putting into this.
Ms. Ulrich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Item E, resolution declaring a junk motor vehicle at 2101 West Galbraith Road. This is at this property, a 2005 black Chevrolet Tahoe. Recommend adoption of the resolution.
Motion, we adopt the resolution declaring a junk vehicle at 2101 West Galbraith Road as described.
I'll second that.
Any discussion?
None.
None?
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Item F, resolution declaring a junk motor vehicle at 10028 Crusader Drive. At this property, there is a 2002 gray Jeep Cherokee. Recommend adoption of the resolution.
I'll motion to declare junk motor vehicle at 10028 Crusader Drive.
I'll second.
No discussion.
Discussion?
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Item G, resolution declaring a junk motor vehicle at 10047 Crusader Drive. There is a 2003 blue Ford Windstar at this property. Recommend adoption of the resolution.
I'll motion to declare junk motor vehicle at 1047 Crusader Drive.
A second. Any discussion?
None.
None?
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Item H, resolution declaring a junk motor vehicle at 11833 Wincanton Drive. Here we have a 1981 white Maxim 2300. Recommend adoption of the resolution.
I recommend I'll move to adopt the resolution declaring a junk vehicle on 11833 Wincanton Drive.
Second. Any discussion?
None.
None?
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
All right, item I, resolution declaring a junk motor vehicle at 11863 Wincanton Drive. Two vehicles at this property. First one is a 2000 green Ford Ecoline. Second is a 1999 gray Buick LeSabre. Recommend adoption of the resolution.
I'll move to declare junk motor vehicle or junk motor vehicles at 11863 Wincanton Drive.
Second. Any discussion?
I was having trouble getting that one to open,
Okay.
but I just did, so I'm good.
Okay.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Thank you, Board.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Board. The next item is new business will be presented by Assistant Administrator Mays.
Welcome back.
Hello again, thank you. The first item on the agenda for public services is a motion to set a fee schedule for the public services for the 2024 operating year. Information on this item can be found on page 63 of your agenda packet. Before I explain each fee, I would first like to point out that there is a typographical error in the shelter fee explanation. So I will correct that once we get to that portion. The department conducted a full-scale analysis of the rates that we currently offer, compared them to peer communities for a full-scale fee review. The department is proposing the following fee changes for 2024. In the memorials section, there's a chart posted in the agenda that you can review. In that chart, the first item under memorials is a new option for a memorial plaque. Currently, we're running out of space to plant new trees. And this would offer us still a viable way for people to remember their loved ones by purchasing a plaque that we can dedicate to a tree that currently exists. It will also provide a more affordable opportunity to provide a memorial for a loved one with a tree due to the rising costs of purchasing trees and planting them, which I will point out later on in the chart there. The increase in the memorial tree will go from $700 to $1,000 to cover the increased cost. Again, going back to the trees that are more pricier, they're running in the range of about $500 per tree, plus the planting and the plaque has also increased in fees. We used to receive a donation from the landscaping company for the memorial, which helped our expenses in keeping them low at that $700 range. Right now, the option to move that up to the $1,000 fee would cover our costs and expenses. The next is a memorial bench. We would raise this from $1,300 to $2,500. This covers the increased cost of a bench purchase, When we started this program, we had people donate the money for the memorial plaque to be added to the currently existing bench. Those benches have now been fulfilled with plaques on each bench, so we would have to purchase a new bench to cover that cost and the plaque. And finally, in this section, we would need to increase the memorial brick from $75 to $100 to cover costs of installing the brick now. The company that we used to utilize to install them would not charge us a fee for this, and now we are getting charged a fee. So this covers all of our expenses and costs and materials for the memorial section. Before I move on to the next section, do we have any questions?
Yes, you mentioned the memorial plaque were just, all of our existing benches that were installed when the parks were constructed, those are all filled up with plaques now? Okay, so when you get to the bench for $2,500, that includes a plaque on a new bench?
And a new bench, yep.
Okay, yeah, it just says bench and it shows plaques separately, but I don't know if that's the typo you were talking about or if.
It was not. No, our typo was under the shelter fee.
Yes.
Okay, so as long as if you put bench with plaque, that would make it easier to understand, so.
Okay, moving on to the next section. This one's pretty simple. For the baseball field rentals, we would increase the fees by $25, except for the one-time rental fee, which will remain at $50. This covers our expenses for increased costs for materials to take care of the field as far as fertilization and seed and everything else that's gone up in price. Are there any questions about the baseball field rentals? Seeing none, we will move to our rectangular fields, as we like to call them, and that includes our soccer, lacrosse, and football. This fee is currently set up with two options for pricing depending on the level of play. And if you're familiar with youth sports, there's that recreational level of play, and then there's a select level of play. We did segregate those two fees, and now we would like to just have one option, which would keep it at the higher fee of the $125. So technically, we're not raising the fees, we're just getting rid of the recreational fee.
For seasonal fee, is that regardless of how many times you use it? If your season's 10 games or 20 games, it's the same price?
It's a pretty good deal in this area.
Yes, it is.
But and
Especially when
there's
we
always
compare
been
it
there's always been a shortage of places for kids to play, but it doesn't really describe how many games that would be or what the season is.
Is that
And that's something I can get back with the board
Well, that's,
on.
I'm sure the folks that you deal with know that answer.
Right.
Yeah, in our Jeff Payne out of our public services department deals with a lot of these groups directly, and so he typically sends out, these are the dates that we determine the season to be. So usually it's a 3-month window.
Is it a first come, first time basis for the times?
It's first come, first serve. Yep.
Yeah,
And
okay.
usually
And the
they
times are about an
sell
hour?
out pretty quickly because
Right,
people who've been doing it know to contact early in the process.
Right.
Now, I was asked, maybe not last year, but 2 years ago, and we talked about it, and I don't know what happened, of opening the baseball/softball fields maybe a bit earlier for use, because, I don't know, what's the date we use, April 1st or something?
Yeah, and I think, as much as we would like to, it's tough to know what weather's going to be like that year, and so we try to base it more on the historical patterns, and you get those occasional Marches that are really warm, and everybody's like, well, I want to be out there playing, and then we get a cold snap right after, and now we're potentially undoing all of the work that we just did to get the field prepped and ready. So that's usually why we don't. Certainly, if we start to see the trend that Marches become warmer and warmer and warmer and warmer, then it would make sense to look at those things.
Okay, our next item on our chart is the amphitheater fees. We would increase the price for residential rates by $10 to a rate of $310 and increase the non-resident rate up $25 to $400 for the rental. This really covers our costs with the utilities and manpower that it needs to set up the area. We would also, if someone is wanting a projector or someone to stay on site, we're increasing that fee as well. As we all know, our hourly rates have increased over the last couple of years. So we would charge for 5 hours, we would charge an attendant and the use of our projector for a total of $100 instead of $50.
Which is very low for an employee that we're paying $20 an hour, or whatever.
Yeah, typically it varies on who we have there. Like if it's in the summers, sometimes it's the summer camp folks who earn significantly less. But if it's a regular park worker, overtime, you're talking, it could be north of $50 per hour, depending on how long
Right,
they've
and
been here.
I mean,
Yeah.
this is a service we're providing for the community and charging a minimal amount for it.
Okay, the last one is where we had our little typo, and it's really more under the non-resident rate. The increase of the shelter rental for non-residents would go from $135 to $140, so that's an increase of $5. And then for non-residents, we will increase by a total of to a total of $400 for a non-resident. That's supposed to say, in your packet, it says $25, but what really is an increase of only $15. So that would go from $225 to $240. So I wanted to make sure we were,
Our packets say that now.
the chart should be correct, but in your packet, in
Oh,
the
okay.
description, it was incorrect with the
Okay.
typo. So I wanted to point that out.
And to add some perspective on shelter rentals, typically we have a goal of anywhere between 300 and 325 rentals per year. And that's typically what we have done, except for this year, we're north of 450 rentals for this year. So the demand for our shelters has gone through the roof. And I don't have to tell you what wear and tear does to those shelters, as well as the additional staff time that then is needed to clean up not only the shelters, but the trash cans and other parts of our park to make sure that they are as pristine as possible.
I want to just end with that, saying that we did benchmark with other communities that offer these similar services, and we're on par with what other communities are offering. With that said, staff would recommend a motion, an adoption and approval of the motion.
I motion that we approve the Public Services 2024 fee schedule as described.
I'll second that.
Any discussions?
So who is the typical non-resident who comes to Colerain to use our shelter when somebody obviously doesn't have one in their own community?
So we take all of our shelter rentals online, and simply put, you can, if I know you and I say, hey, Dan, can you
Oh,
please rent the shelter for me?
So it's Aunt Tiffany coming from Liberty Township says, hey, I want to have a birthday party. I'll be the one who rents it.
for me.
Okay.
And you just put your address. The website recognizes it's a Colerain address, so it recognizes you as a resident.
Sure.
Whereas if I put my address in, it would be a non-resident.
There
We
have
have a
been,
couple honest people out there, but.
and there have been some situations where it's a business that's throwing a company picnic or a church that's holding a get together, and so things like that. They're not always from
But
Colerain.
ultimately on our rentals, there's one person named as the responsible person. So if Matt rents it and it gets trashed, Matt's who you're coming after.
Yes, sir.
I was just using your name as a.
Yeah, I've trashed several.
No, but that's, I just was wondering who the typical non-resident was. I don't have any other discussion on it.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Wallace?
Yes.
Okay, the next item is a motion to authorize the Township Administrator to execute an agreement with YMCA for senior services. This information can be found on page 65 of your agenda packet. This really more is a renewal of a current contract that we have with the YMCA for the provision of senior programming. The attached agreement is for a 3-year period at an annual rate of $60,000 per year. Staff recommendation is an adoption and approval of the motion.
A motion that we approve the agreement with the YMCA for senior services.
I'll second that.
Discussion?
Nora Dashley is the fabulous person who does a marvelous job operating the program.
And that has not increased at all from the last one, so that's nice.
Merely a renewal for
Right.
3 more years.
Really nice.
And not only does she do a fantastic job, but her brother teaches in the room next door to me.
And you know she has a twin sister then.
What's
I've seen her and her twin out and they dress the same and it's.
really?
It's, they're very close in appearance, so
Interesting.
just don't get fooled by it, Matt, if the other one shows up. So they're marvelous people, and they run a marvelous program. And as soon as Mr. Weckbach gets that bus running, we will have the whole thing tied together. Mr. Weckbach.
Well, bus running and staff available to drive the bus per Council on Aging's requirements.
Understood. No other discussion.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
The next item is a motion to adopt the 5-year road plan. This information can be found on page 70 of your agenda packet. The current 2023 road program is in the final stages of completion, and we are happy to say that we have successfully been able to complete almost 2 years' worth of paving with the generous approval of additional funds from the Township Trustees this year. That being said, the 2024 streets have been moved, or excuse me, the 2025 streets have been moved up, and some other streets have been inspected, and the current program that you see in front of you is what our staff is recommending. The staff's recommendation is that the 2024 list be approved as is, and if cost savings or additional budget cannot be obtained, reductions can be made at a later date. You'll notice there's a slight increase due to the county not being able to pave a road that they had mentioned in the past that they would. Staff recommendation is an adoption and approval of the motion.
I motion that we adopt the 5-year road plan.
I'll second.
And we still have part of the 24 plan that will be done in the spring that we already approved, which is the microsurfacing of a number of streets, which is kind of, you can get a lot more productivity and better results if the weather's more predictable or consistently above 60 degrees. You can get a lot more productivity, and we're out of season right now, so I'm happy to approve this.
We have left too.
And we still have to get all the reclamite down as well.
No other discussion from me.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Thank you, Board. The next item is a motion authorizing the Township Administrator to execute a contract amendment with Choice One Engineering for the addition of the right-of-way plans for the Pool Road Sidewalk Project for $28,500. This information can be found on page 73 of your packet agenda. We are currently under contract with Choice One Engineering, but it does not currently have a provision for the agency to develop a right-of-way plans for this project due to the uncertainty of the impact that the project would have on the right-of-way. The preliminary plans were just recently completed, and it was determined that it would be necessary to take 8 temporary parcels to complete the project. And a temporary take is basically an expansion of the right-of-way on private property. So once the project is finished, the property will be restored to as is or better than when the project began. So that's, just to simply put that, that's what that means. The development of the right-of-way plans will increase the contract amount by $28,500. So it will go from the original contract price of $105,753 to $134,253. Staff recommendation is an adoption and approval of the motion.
I motion we would approve it as presented.
Second.
Discussion?
None.
None.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
And the final item, yes, let me just double check that, is a motion authorizing the Township Administrator to execute an agreement with D.R. Horton for snow and ice removal of Crosley Meadows subdivision. Information on this item can be found on page 76 of your agenda packet. And just as last year, the developer of Crosley Meadows has requested the township to remove snow and ice on these unaccepted streets for their subdivision while they are constructing those streets. The attached contract would compensate the township at a rate of 10 cents per lineal foot for a total of 1,786 lineal feet. Staff recommendation is an adoption and approval of the motion.
I motion that we approve the contract with D.R. Horton,
I'll second.
Discussion?
and we discussed the rate for that, which I think is
I'm just looking it
we're
up.
providing a service to our new homeowners at
10
that
cents
rate.
per linear foot.
Well, it's $178 to
Yeah,
drive
I
down
just-
the street and
Yeah.
every time we go out there to push snow, so it should go pretty quick to do that other portion of the street, so I'm fine with it.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Ms. Orch?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Thank you, board.
All right, board, the next items of new business will be brought forward by Development Director David Miller.
Welcome back.
Thank you very much. Got a number of items here under development, so we'll move through those expeditiously. First item is a motion to appoint members to the Board of Zoning Appeals. And so the permanent members serve for 5-year terms, and the alternates serve 2-year terms. For 2024, staff recommends the following appointments to the Board of Zoning Appeals. Permanent member would be Robert Bartolt. He's currently serving, and he has agreed to be reappointed. And then our alternate member would be Charles Thiemann. Again, he is currently an alternate and has agreed to serve once again for a 2-year term. A recommendation is for approval of the motion.
I motion we appoint members to the Board of Zoning Appeals as described.
I'll second. Any discussion?
Thank them for their service.
Yes, thank you.
Again, I'll just echo what I said with the new board that we created. This is citizen government at its finest.
Mr. Baker?
Ms. Orch?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Next appointments are for the Zoning Commission and similar terms and years. Our permanent member would be a reappointment for Mr. J. Thomas Westfall.
He's in the room.
Thank you, sir. And then we have a new alternate member that is joining, if you approve. Linda Sue Goggle has agreed to serve as an alternate member for the Zoning Commission, and recommendation is approval.
I motion that we would appoint the members to the Zoning Commission as described.
Second.
Any discussion?
Thank you for the volunteering your service, Linda.
Absolutely.
Ms. Orch?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Next item is to approve the zoning department's 2024 fee schedule, and there are no changes from what we currently charge.
Okay.
Recommendations approval.
I'll motion to approve the 2024 zoning department fee schedule.
I'll second. Any discussions?
No.
No?
Ms. Orch?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Next item is to approve the 2024 meeting and submission dates for the Board of Zoning Appeals. Generally speaking, the BZA meets at 6:30 p.m. on the fourth Wednesday of the month. There normally is no change to these as they are presented. And then periodically there is a special, but this is the schedule before you for BZA.
I'll motion to approve the 2024 meeting and submission dates for the Board of Zoning Appeals.
I'll second. Any discussions?
Take a quick look at that.
It's December 15th. Yeah, you got it.
Is December 18th the fourth Wednesday of 24? But that's, I realize why you're moving it up to the third Wednesday.
December 18th, 2024.
It says December,
Yeah, but I'm just looking at the list.
says December 13th.
It looks like something's due December 18th. Let me go back to the top. The meeting date says December 18th, so that's the third. That would be the third Wednesday, so they're all on the fourth Wednesday except the 18th, right?
Yes, they decided not to schedule it on Christmas Day.
Right, well, I understand, but I just wanted to point out that one of them wasn't that, and I'm doing all that with just the calendar that's in my head.
Hey, that's pretty good.
Christmas, isn't that the Aloha Bowl day?
You know, I have no idea.
No other discussion.
Ms. Orch?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Next motion is to approve submission and meeting dates for the Zoning Commission. Recommendations approval.
I'll motion to approve the 2024 meeting and submission dates for the Zoning Commission.
I'll second. Any discussion?
No.
No?
And I just would point out, meetings for Zoning Commission meet at 6 p.m. and they are the third Tuesday of the month.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Next item is a motion to set a public hearing for January the 2nd, 2024. That would be at 6 p.m. regarding zoning commission case ZA 2023-16. This would be a zoning text amendment to modify mobile food service regulations. So zoning commission has already heard these changes. There were a number of items that we thought were a little bit overbearing on food truck operations and just constrained the ability for them to have flexibility that they needed. As well, they were limited only to the B1 districts, so we've added B2 and B3, but that would be covered in the public hearing on this particular date. And if you will notice that it is on January the 2nd, and that's going to be on the date that we currently have scheduled for our organizational meeting for our annual on that date. And so given the schedule that the zoning commission presented the item coming out of there and their recommendation for approval, and when the next regularly scheduled Board of Trustees would meet on the 23rd of January, we needed to add these special public hearings to the January 2nd date. So that's why they are on that date.
So I'll motion to set a public hearing for January 2nd, 2024, regarding zoning commission case ZA 2023-16, zoning text amendment to modify mobile food services regulation.
I'll second.
Would that be during or before or after the organizational meeting?
During, so it's going to be noticed as an organizational and special meeting so that we can both
Okay.
hear and take action on these items as we will be required to do so under our zoning code.
And do you anticipate there to be any other business so we could make it a regular meeting also?
I think everything else on the agenda is going to be consistent with prior years. There's a chance always that there may be some consent items, but I'm happy to push consent items to the 23rd if need be.
Okay, so you're gonna have your usual stuff that's on the organizational meeting, and I know at a,
Essentially, everything
this
that
is-
was on it from last year will be on it this
Right.
year, and I don't anticipate any additional items besides these zoning issues.
okay. I'm ready for you.
Yep.
That's all.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Next motion is similarly a zoning commission case ZA 2023-17, which is a zoning map amendment, as opposed to the text, from R6 to B1, 3541 and 51 Banning Road. It's a rezone from R6 to B1, and the similar purpose for having this public hearing on the state. Recommendations approval.
I'll motion to set a public hearing for January 2nd, 2024, regarding zoning commission case ZA 2023-17, zoning map amendment from R6 to B1 for 3541 and 3551 Banning Road.
I'll second. Any discussion?
None?
None.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Next item is a motion authorizing Township Administrator to execute an agreement with Transformance Realty and Gosman Group for up to $80,000. And this would allow the township to develop a deeper understanding of the physical, the legal, and the market challenges and opportunities for the former Sears site at Northgate Mall.
So I'm going to motion to table the authorizing a township administrator to execute agreement with Transformance Realty and Gossman Group for up to $80,000.
I'll second. Discussion?
Yeah, and the reason that I'm tabling is more fact-finding and some more discussion with administration on the potential scope of this, and there are, I guess, other potential avenues besides this. So I just want to, I want to get a full picture.
You have any discussion?
No, no discussion.
So to just clarify, I will plan on bringing this back at the January 23rd meeting.
Yeah, not January 2nd.
Yes.
January 23rd. Okay.
I think that was what Dan was getting at earlier when he was ready for me.
Yeah.
So
No, I'm getting at the purchasing thing that we discussed a couple meetings ago, but I'm ready for you.
I'm ready
You know what
for
I'm
it too.
talking, you know what I'm talking about.
Okay, so we've got a second to table this.
Right,
Ms. Orich?
Yes,
Mr. Unger?
Yes, the table.
Mr. Waller?
yes.
okay.
Next item is a motion authorizing a 90-day extension for 9929 Capstan demolition agreement. If you'll recall, we have gone through a long and arduous route on a variety of buildings and homes that needed demolition. This was one that was purchased at sheriff's auction from a local resident, and they had an agreement with us, put a cash bond down, and they had some timelines that they needed to meet, and because of some trouble with contractors meeting the deadlines that they needed in order to meet the deadlines that we established with them, they have asked for a 90-day extension based on the information they presented to us and the completion of the various tasks that were on the demolition agreement. We believe that it is prudent for us to allow that 90-day extension.
I'll motion to authorize 90-day extension, 9929 Capstan demolition agreement.
I'll second. And I've driven by this and they're doing a nice job, so I do understand that they have run into some delays.
So when is the completion date and when would the new completion date be? Do you have that?
Yep, so the original completion date was December 6th, so that has passed. The new completion date will be March 5th, 2024.
Okay.
A 90-day extension, yes.
Ms. Orich?
Yes,
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
And a similar motion for the home at 2864 Houston. I have had communications with them as well. They had issues with their contractors. They have met all the benchmarks except for the 3 that are still listed here with ETAs that are very near. And then the patch and repair of the driveway would be spring, just based on the weather. And so we think that once again, it's prudent for us to grant them this 90-day extension.
yes.
I motion that we approve the 90-day extension for the 2864 Houston Road
I second.
property.
Any discussions?
None.
None.
Ms. Orich?
Yes,
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
That's all I have.
thank you.
All right, Board. Administration has several items today. The first is a motion to set an organizational and special meeting at 6 p.m. on January 2nd, 2024. We're required to have our organizational meeting by state law, and this is consistent with past practice. As we mentioned with those zoning issues, those would be considered, and hence that being the special meeting portion of this notice. And I would recommend adoption of the motion.
I motion we had set an organizational meeting and special meeting at 6 o'clock on January 2nd, 2024.
Second. Any discussion?
None.
None.
That, I'm just checking, that's the Rose Bowl.
Are you in it? Are you in it this year, Matt?
Yeah, I guess we can let that slide.
It's a Tuesday. Isn't
Yeah,
the
it's a
Rose Bowl on
Tuesday.
Monday the 1st?
No, the second. They have bowls on the second. Now, the first is the quarterfinals or semifinals. All right,
Mr. Baker?
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
yes.
All right, thank you, Board. The next item is a resolution adopting sidewalk maintenance assessments. Consistent with past practice, we will go out and we will perform necessary construction work on sidewalks that are in disrepair. We've been utilizing community development block grant funds to create a revolving loan fund. So this would pass along the cost of those improvements at a 5-year rate with a 0% interest rate to those residents for the work that we did on their behalf. We had a public hearing as required earlier tonight, and I would recommend adoption of the resolution.
A motion to adopt the sidewalk maintenance assessments.
I'll second. Any discussion?
None. It's right here in the agenda for anyone who wants to see it.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
The next item is actually going to waterfall with several additional items after, and it is a motion to adopt the 2024 strategic plan and budget. So over the past 6+ months, staff has worked both internally and externally to really evaluate what we do well, what we can do better, and what our priorities should be. We've engaged in several discussions with community groups as well as with you all in terms of work sessions as well as public session. And we've identified several goals which then align to various strategies. Based on those strategies and what we've included in the strategic plan, our theme for the next year is recommended to, well, for the next 3 years, is recommended to be growing a thriving and sustainable community. This theme captures all the different goals that you all set as legislative priorities. And as you dig into this document, which I encourage you all to do so at your leisure, there are just mountains of information, as well as some information that specifically shows how our goals are tying back into that theme. And so I'm happy to answer any questions about the strategic plan and budget book, but I would recommend adoption of the motion.
I motion we adopt the 2024 strategic plan and budget book.
I'll second. Discussions?
And as we go through this, if there's things we want to amend, the board would have the power to amend those.
That is correct. And later, we're going to consider temporary appropriations. Another good setting point for us is permanent appropriations, which happens in March. So you are absolutely correct. From a legislative standpoint, you guys can take any action to change any of these items, remove them, add new items, and that's at your discretion.
And my yes vote will be based on that.
Okay.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Thank you, Board. I believe the next item is going to be presented by Assistant Administrator Mays.
A lot of work into the next one, a lot of page reading.
Need David to lower this every time he leaves. All right, the next item is a resolution adopting the organizational chart and job descriptions. This information can be found on page 129 of your agenda packet. Staff has completed the process of reviewing all job descriptions within the organization to make improvements, corrections, and updates as it pertains to the duties and assignments of the employees, and have been amended to reflect current practices and operations of the township. Staff recommendation is an adoption and approval of the resolution.
I'll motion to adopt the organizational chart and job descriptions.
I'll second. Any discussions?
I was just having trouble getting it to open, that's all.
Yeah, I love how all the job descriptions, everything, who reports to who, gives the job, and I love that everybody has to sign it. So if there's any discrepancy, you can say, you've signed it, it's right here. So I loved every bit of that.
A lot of work has gone into
Yes,
that over
extreme
many
amount of
years.
work.
That did not exist prior to my time here. It was a Jeff Mills project that you did a lot of work on, but it's important to have.
What was great was when we started that project, there were several job descriptions still on typewritten paper, so it was really neat to bring us into
Well,
the
it's-
20th
It's
century.
good to have from an employee point of view because you know what you're supposed to be,
your
what
job
the
is,
expectation is.
You know who to report to and not doing somebody else's job. So,
Ms. Orich?
yes,
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Thank you, Board. See you in a couple minutes.
So the next item is another item related to the adoption of the strategic plan, and that is a resolution adopting temporary appropriations for fiscal year 2024. This aligns with the organizational chart that you all just approved to make sure that we have dollars in place to pay all those employees, and it aligns with everything that was outlined in the strategic plan and budget book, including all of the specific tactile initiatives that we have outlined in there. And with that, I'll recommend adoption of the resolution.
I motion that we adopt the resolution authorizing the adoption of temporary appropriations for the year 2024.
I'll second. Any discussions?
It looks like there's still American Rescue Plan funds in there.
Yep, that's interest that has accumulated over the years that we will need to spend before 2025 is up.
Wow, that's
And
nice
$1.176
money.
million for the bonds and $800,000 for the fire fund.
Yep.
And the self-insurance fund, how does that, you might not know this off the top of your head, but how does that compare to previous amounts?
That is consistent with what we budget. Actually, what you will likely see, we didn't have to reduce it this year, but in past years, we've actually reduced this number down as needed to. Typically, we actually wind up spending closer to 1.6, but we like to budget for the full actuarial amount in the off chance that we have that really bad year that will happen at some point in our plan.
Right, so hopefully at the end of '24, that if everything goes right, there'll be 500,000 left in that fund. Okay. No other comments?
Like the last two? Yeah.
Mr. Baker?
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Thank you, Board. The next item is a resolution authorizing the adoption of amended appropriations, and we are looking specifically at amending a few funds here. The first fund is the Community Development Block Grant Fund that would take amended appropriations down from $149,999 to $20,000. Typically with this fund, we budget for the full amount, but if we're not going to get the reimbursement in the same calendar year, we like to reduce it so that we don't have a negative on our books at year end. And so there will be some of those dollars that are reallocated into the next fiscal year. In the gas tax fund, that's a reduction just to ensure that we are within our certificate of resources. And then the final item is an increase in appropriations for the town center fund. And this is just to make sure that all the different dollars that flow through our trustees at at Huntington are able to be accounted for on our books in the proper manner. This is not actually any real expenditures. It's just the dollars as they flow through our Huntington trust accounts need to be recognized on our books. Okay. So with that, I would recommend adoption of the resolution.
I motion we approve the resolution authorizing the adoption of amended appropriations and amending the 2023 strategic plan and budget.
Second that.
It's all pretty well laid out here. No comments from me.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
All right, Board, the next item is a motion to establish a merit pool of $103,106 for non-represented township employees. To be consistent with past practice, this dollar amount reflects all costs associated with potential wage increases, such as Medicare, workers' comp, and retirement contributions. This amounts to what is the equivalent of a 3% merit pool. And as we currently do our merit evaluations, there are two main factors that really influence and impact the specific merit increase that individuals get. That is where they are in their salary compared to their peers and how they performed in terms of their actual evaluation compared to the whole organization. So if you performed really well and you were paid very low compared to your peers, you will likely see a higher merit increase than those who are paid very well and did very poorly. So it's a sort of an art and a science that goes into this, but I would recommend adoption of the merit pool.
I motion that we adopt the motion to establish a merit pool of $103,106 for non-represented township employees.
Second that.
Any discussions?
No, thank you for recognizing our employees that choose to represent themselves.
Choose to not represent themselves.
They represent themselves individually, like I do at my day job.
Yes.
So, thank you.
Nomenclature.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
The next item on the agenda, I believe, is going to be presented by Ms. Mays.
Hello again. The next item on the agenda is a motion to accept Ohio's plan's proposal for property and casualty insurance at a rate of $351,283. This information can be found on page 343 of your agenda packet. The renewal will provide the township with an additional year of coverage from the Ohio plan. This coverage is structurally the same as in previous years. The rate has gone up 7%. However, that accounts for the increase in the headcount in our police department, which ultimately, when you factor that into play, it is only a 4% increase. As part of this renewal, Highland shopped the township's property and casualty insurance with several other vendors, and those vendors declined to bid on the township's book of business. So coverage on this plan would take effect on December 15th, 2023, and would expire on December 14th of 2024. Staff recommendation is an adoption and approval of the motion.
A motion, we accept the Ohio Plan's proposal for property and casualty insurance at a rate of $351,283.
I'll second that.
Any discussions?
None.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
The next item is a motion to appoint Trustee Unger as the representative to the Board of Directors of the Ohio, Kentucky, Indiana Regional Council of Governments and Assistant Administrator Mays as an alternate. Information on this item can be found on page 348 of your agenda packet. OKI is also what Ohio, Kentucky, and Indiana Regional Council stands for. It provides crucial funding for many of the township's infrastructure projects. OKI is a metropolitan planning organization that federal grants flow through. By having representation on this board, the township is better positioned to be aware of the grants and is to be able to draft grant responses that will be more likely to be awarded. Staff recommendation is an adoption and approval of the motion.
I'll motion to appoint Trustee Unger as representative to the Board of Directors of Ohio, Kentucky, Indiana Regional Council of Governments, and Assistant Administrator Mays is the alternate.
Sorry, I second.
And I don't know if it's a conflict or not for me to abstain.
So,
Okay.
Ms. Orich?
yes.
Mr. Unger?
Abstain.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Thank
you,
you
Board.
for your confidence.
All right, Board, the next two items go hand in hand. The first item is a motion authorizing the Township Administrator to execute a collective bargaining agreement with the FOP Blue Unit. This is the unit that represents our police officers, and we've been working with the union for the past several months to update their collective bargaining unit in a way that would align with both management and employee expectations. This contract would be effective 1/1/24 and extend through 12/31/26 if approved. I would recommend adoption of the motion.
I motion that we authorize the Township Administrator to execute the collective bargaining agreement with FOP Blue.
I'll second. Any discussion?
I'd like to thank all of our personnel in our police department for their incredible service. They do a great job.
And thank you for all your negotiation skills.
Nothing.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
And Board, the last item of new business tonight is a motion authorizing the Township Administrator to execute collective bargaining agreement with FOP Gold. So this is a very similar contract, different wage rates, and slightly different clauses. And this contract represents our sergeants, so the first promotional rank above the police patrol officers.
A motion that we authorize the Township Administrator to execute the collective bargaining agreement with the FOP Gold.
I'll second.
And once again, they do incredible work under very challenging circumstances a lot of the time, most of the time, all of the time.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Board. The final items are all under the consent agenda, and I'm going to read those into the record for you. So, a contract that I signed with Silco for Sally Port camera repairs in an amount of $1,120. A contract that I signed with Addiction Services Council for QRT support at no cost. A contract with Cellbrite for investigative software for $6,775. A donation acceptance for the administration department from Meyer in the amount of $100. A promotion to sergeant in the police department of Officer Nick Robers at a rate of $43.62. A new hire of a school safety officer in the police department of Mr. Eric Franz at $35 per hour. New hires, these are recruits in the fire and EMS department at a rate of $16.15. And give me 1 second, I will read those names that are recruits into the record. These are Nolan Abrams, Riley Abrams, Dylan Ayers, Garrett Berter, Jaden Chappelle, Blake Dethridge, Lucas Fulmer, Alexander Gluck, Lucas Geyer, Zach Hoffman, Brandon Imhoff, Benjamin Keiki, Joseph Kabenji, Evan Massey, Logan Meyer, Joseph Paulini, Trey Smith, Steven Sosa, Andrew Sparks, Andrew Spinney, Hunter Ward, Andrew Weber, and Lucas Wilms. And then in similar fashion, we've got some new hires as part-time firefighter paramedics at a rate of $19.25 per hour. And that would be Mr. Cody Schwale. Sorry, I went a little out of order. We also have some part-time firefighter EMTs that we hire at $16.99 per hour. That's Aaron Cook, Ben Kroger, Caleb Madison, Kyle Stafford, and Jacob Wagner. And then finally, some new hires in fire of paramedics, part-time paramedics at a rate of $17.75 per hour, and that's Gavin Ripley. And I would recommend approval of all consent items.
I motion that we approve the consent items as described and presented.
I'll second. Any discussions?
None.
Any?
None?
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Okay.
I should have put this in my, I'll wait till, I'm sorry, it's
Fiscal.
Fiscal, but I wanted to say something before we adjourn.
Okay. Fiscal office report.
Thank you, Board. First, we are reaching the end, obviously, of the year, but November was our busiest month for public records request. We had 125 records requested in November, which gives us a total of 755 for the year, with 13 that are still active. So we're working on getting those done. Also, October as well as November, financials have been completed and have been put onto the website. So the finance department continues to, just amaze me at the level of quality of work that they do. So kudos to them. And then lastly, hope everyone has a very Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
All right, sorry, I should have put this in my trustee report, but thank you to Colerain Township, Colerain Police Department, and the Nancy Haverkamp Foundation for hosting the Canine Shop with a Cop, where we hosted Hamilton County, Butler County, City of Cincinnati, University of Cincinnati, Colerain Township, Springfield, Norwood, Amberley Village, and Miami Township East. And Officer Morris was here with Ghost, who, hilariously enough, for a toy, chews on PVC pipe.
Sharpens his teeth.
Yeah, and it was just a really great event. Thank you to Meyer for hosting it. I came out because my little sister came out, so, from Miami Township, so thank you so much.
Is there a need for an executive session?
I would like to have it, since it's going to be quite a while before we meet again.
Okay, he left us, but
Oh, no, for the other, there's another, just a legal issue.
so what, issue?
On that note, the motion would be to go into executive session in accordance with ORC 121.22G3 to discuss pending or imminent litigation.
Okay,
I motion that we go into executive session for that reason.
I'll second.
And I don't see it taking too long.
No,
It's just an update.
Ms. Orich?
yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes,
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
and when we come back, I anticipate we'll just adjourn with no
Yeah,
action
right.
taken.
Okay,
Attendance.
hi, it's 9:37, we're back from executive session. Is there anything to report, Mr. Wetbach?
No.
Okay, with that, do we have a motion to adjourn?
I motion we adjourn the meeting at
Do you need to
We need to take attendance.
take it
Oh,
down?
gosh, I forgot that attendance.
Ms. Orich?
Here,
Mr. Unger?
here.
Mr. Waller?
Here. Motion to adjourn.
I second the motion to adjourn.
we adjourn now.
Ms. Orich?
Yes,
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
thank you. We're adjourned at 9:37. Okay.